Melodie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. So I met Devin, I think when I was 41. And like I said, I had waited a long time to meet someone, but had never really wanted children. Even in my 30s, I had asked about maybe having my tubes tied
Oh,
because
wow.
I was sure that I did not want kids. And I was met with, you're too young, you might change your mind. And I was so annoyed because I was like, "Ugh, I know my body. I know I don't want kids." Anyway, so I met Devin at 41, and maybe like 6 months later, I just started having this intense desire to have a child with Devin. And it was a new feeling I had like never really experienced before.
Hmm.
And this might be a little too much, but I think some people can relate. We didn't use condoms or birth control. We just used the pull out method.
Uh-huh.
And I started like getting really emotional when he pulled out because I just had this like guttural urge to have a child. And it was so strange because would cry when he would pull out because I wanted a baby so bad and I never experienced that before. Like it was just this intense desire. So maybe like a year later, we briefly talked about trying for a child, and his version of the story would be completely different than, than mine. But in my world, we had talked about having a child, and I knew when I was ovulating, or I thought I knew when I was ovulating. And so I knew we had chances of getting pregnant. And the first month I did get pregnant, and
Wow, the first month of trying.
the first month, yeah,
Wow.
it was nuts.
How old were you when this happened?
So I was 42. I had to look at my notes. I don't know, 42. I literally was like 4 weeks along and had a miscarriage. And it was
Ugh.
so devastating. When it's your first miscarriage, it is like the worst thing in the whole world. I had like got my HCGs and then like they started trending down.
Uh-huh.
And it was probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through. I had to take a couple weeks off of work because you get all this excitement that you're
Hmm.
going to have this baby.
I was the same way. You're so naive going through
Yeah,
that experience.
totally.
Hmm.
Totally. Nothing prepares you for it.
No.
And it's so difficult.
Hmm.
So then we took a month off. I think we were busy, and he also plays in a band. So he was out playing shows, and I went on a little trip to go hiking. And I purposely came back to town like when I was ovulating.
Convenient. I know that feeling.
So again, like we immediately got pregnant the second time that
Wow.
we tried, which was like 3 months later. And that pregnancy lasted about 8 weeks. And it's like still so vivid in my mind. My band was playing a show that day and started spotting. And in retrospect, I feel like I should have maybe like stayed home and rested and done what was right for my body, but I had no idea.
Hmm.
Like I just didn't know I should be resting. But so I started spotting and then I ended up miscarrying. And I was like bleeding through the entire show that we played that night. And that was traumatic. You go to the bathroom and there's more blood and go get back out on stage.
But
Anyway,
did you realize you were going to have a miscarriage?
I thought it was possible, like possibly I was miscarrying because I was really just like heavy spotting, which
Hmm.
can be normal, they
Yeah,
say.
sure.
But then over that night and the next night, I believe it just like continued and a heavier bleeding. And then the pain just got so bad. I didn't know at the time because, again, like you said, we are pretty naive when we've never gone through something like this before. But it was like contractions. Like my body was trying to push the baby out or the placenta or whatever it is at weeks. My body was trying to push out of my system, and the pain just got so bad. And I kept calling my OB, like, is this normal? Should I be in this much pain? And they're like, go to the emergency room if it gets worse or you can't handle it. So after several hours, like, I literally thought I was gonna die from pain, and Devin drove me to the emergency room, and they confirmed that we were having a miscarriage, and then ended up doing a DNC that night.
Did they
And
give a reason why?
no, and in hindsight, like, I wish I would have said, can you like test some of the tissue from the
Mm,
baby? But I didn't know. I didn't know anything about that at that
yeah,
time. It's all in hindsight.
it is.
But so yeah, I wish I would have said, can you test like for chromosome abnormalities or what's causing this? But we didn't do that. And then after that, like Devin decided that he didn't want to try anymore.
Mm,
It was a couple months later, we took a little vacation, and I was ovulating at that time, and he just like wanted nothing to do with trying to have a child. And I'm not like, I'm not like talking bad about him. It was just we were both going through our own experiences of like, how do we handle this and what's going on? What do we really want? So we had some really serious conversations, and he decided that he didn't want to try anymore to have kids. So at that point, like, I was kind of like, do I stay in this relationship and not have a child? Or do I leave this relationship that I've waited so long for, like, that I've never experienced before? Leave this relationship and maybe have a baby with someone else, or, IVF. And it was a really, really hard like time
sure.
to be thinking about all these things. And I just was really dealing with a lot of depression because I had just lost two babies. And it's like, now, am I going to give up my partner or and give up babies? Anyway, ultimately, I decided to stay with my partner. And yeah, I felt like our relationship was something, like, I just keep repeating myself. Our relationship was something so new to me, like meeting someone that I was so connected
Hmm.
to, that is really hard to give that up to maybe go have a baby
Hmm.
with someone else. So we stayed together, and I would say I was really still battling depression. Like, it's hard to work through miscarriages and just that sense of loss and different milestones of like, my baby would have been born on
Yeah.
this date. And I'll go back to say real quick, just like in the doctor's office, when you've had these miscarriages and they send you in for all these follow-up tests, and you have to see all these pregnant women like sitting right next to you. Like, I did ask to be like put in a different room. Like,
Hmm.
I can't sit here and wait like for my appointment with all these pregnant people.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that's something that should be addressed in the future, like, for all women,
Yeah.
is that we shouldn't have to be waiting in the same waiting room if we've experienced something pretty traumatic.
Yeah. My doctor, whenever I was going through a miscarriage, she said, hey, you don't even have to go in the waiting room. Just go at the back door and knock on it, and they'll let you in. And I'm
That's
like, oh,
awesome.
thank you. Yeah.
That's so
It
awesome.
was so nice.
So I stayed with Devin, and about, let's see, actually, like almost exactly a year after our second miscarriage, I decided that I would move out and like not cut ties with Devin, but I moved out of our house together. We both needed a little bit of space. And we initially broke up, but then we decided that we would keep dating, but just live in separate homes.
Hmm.
So I was living in my little tiny home. I moved in there in
Was it like an
November.
actual tiny home?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so fun. I love those.
They're so cute and it's so nice because then you're not like sharing walls with anyone. You have your
Yes.
own like four walls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had this cute little tiny home and we continued dating. I moved in there at the very end of November, New Year's weekend or whatever. We had just 3 days off where he came and stayed at the tiny home. And all we did was eat and relax and be intimate. And he was still using the pull out method. But the on the third day, he for one time he didn't pull out all the way. And I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're probably shooting blanks at this point." 'Cause that's what they say. Like, anyway, sure enough, like 2 weeks later, I started spotting. I spotted with all my pregnancies, just like implantation
Mm-hmm.
bleeding. And I had a friend over and I was spotting a little bit. And I said, I just hate it when I spot because I always think I'm pregnant. And so later that day, I was like, well, I'll just take a pregnancy test. And I did, and it was positive.
Wow. What were you
Yeah.
thinking?
I was thinking, I'm pretty sure I was like, I'm so excited. I had no idea what Devin was gonna say.
You were still excited even after the two miscarriages.
I mean, I wanted a baby so bad.
I'd
Uh,
love to hear that though. That's so good.
Yeah, so positive pregnancy test, and I was like, how am I gonna tell Devin? Because I
Yeah.
know I know that he doesn't really want a baby. And he came over and I was like, well, let's go for a walk. So we went for a walk and I was like, oh, I can't remember what I said to him, but told him we were pregnant and he was not very excited. He honestly he said he would rather get a dog than have a baby.
Ugh.
I was like, okay. And we had a pretty rough conversation and he was just like, this isn't what I want. He's like, if I leave, I'm letting you down. If I don't leave, I'm letting myself down. And I don't know what to do. And I was crying and I like so emotional, like worried that I was like these emotions were gonna trigger another miscarriage,
Mhm.
right? But I was just basically like, I can do this without you. So you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to go, but I can do it on my own if it's not something you want to be a part of.
Mhm.
And he left. And I don't know if it was that night or a couple nights later, just called and was like, okay, let's do this together. And he really did a 180. It was still hard for him. I mean, you could tell he was just trying to be supportive and work through his own emotions at the same time, but he would come over and feed me. He just
Mhm.
wanted to make sure I was eating healthy with this pregnancy. And we decided, I said, well, if I'm going to have this baby, I don't want to be living in this tiny home by myself. Like, I think that we should move back in together. And then we were like, should we move back in together? Like, what if we have another miscarriage? Like, if we have another miscarriage, like, are you still wanting to be together? So we ultimately decided that we did want to try to be together again, and we would still stay together even if we had a third miscarriage. So then I moved back into his house.
What a tough experience. Like you have the pregnancy after two miscarriages and your relationship. Like that must have been really challenging to go through.
It was a lot. It was
Mhm.
really challenging, but it was also very exciting at the same time.
Sure.
And obviously very nervous too, that, when you're looking at toilet paper every time you wipe, like wondering if you're going to have another miscarriage. And
Yep.
then while I was still in the tiny house, like I fell down getting out of my shower. I'm like, I never fall. Like,
Yeah.
why am I falling now? So I called my doctor when after I fell, and she was basically like, you need to rest for 24 to 48 hours. And if you don't see any like signs of bleeding, then you should be okay. So everything turned out okay.
Wow. Still
Oh,
scary. So your pregnancy, how was it?
it was it was really good, I have to say.
Mhm.
Like my OBGYN was about the same age as me, and she basically it, and it was the same OBGYN, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, who did the DNC with my second miscarriage.
Mhm.
And she had said, like, the 2 years prior, she was like, you will have a baby. And, or she said, we're going to get you that baby, or you will have a baby. Something that I carried with me. And I was so mad at her for like 2 years because she said she had told me I was going to have a baby and I hadn't had a baby. And so when I went in to see her, I was like, I was so mad at you after that DNC. Because you told me I'd have this baby and I didn't. And now, anyway, but she was my same age, so super supportive. And she said basically, like, anytime you're ready to get out of work, just let me know and I will write you a note to your employer. And so at 6 months, our unit at the hospital was getting pretty chaotic and we were having lots of more increased violence on our unit. And it wasn't anything that I wanted to be around, having already had 2 miscarriages, and I didn't want to like accidentally get hit in the
Yeah.
stomach by a patient. So so I left work at 6 months, and it was so great to be home. Like I had all this time to read books, to rest.
Yeah.
Um, but and it was still during COVID, so it was pretty isolating. The
Mhm.
only thing I did was I literally went to the gym every single day and walked for like an hour and a half.
Wow.
And then I would go home. I walked slowly because I did have for several months, Birdie was positioned on my hip or spine in a way that caused a lot of pain. Can't remember what that's called, but so I would have to walk really slow because it was painful. But she
Mhm.
eventually moved. Well, I tried physical therapy and all these things to get rid of the pain, and none of that seemed to help. So she eventually moved positions, and then everything kind of eased up as far as pain.
Now you're calling her a she. When did you find out the gender?
Pretty much as soon as you can find out. I can't remember if that's how early on that is. I want to say like 3 months, but that seems really late to be finding out the gender.
Was it
It
a blood test?
was a blood test.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we did that about the same. It was like 10 weeks or so as ever we did it. I think you can do it a little earlier.
yeah, 10 to 12 weeks sounds about right as far as when we did it. And I
Mhm.
wasn't going to do it, but because the same blood tests or they draw them all together was for chromosomal abnormalities. And I was like, I don't really want to know because we're going to have her one way or another.
Mhm.
Excuse me, but my OBGYN essentially said, like, well, it's helpful for us to know if there are abnormalities because it'll make a difference as to what hospital you deliver at,
Mm,
to who can handle like harder cases.
sure.
So we went ahead and did the blood tests, and yeah, those all came back normal. And I just cried my eyes out because I was so thankful. We would love any baby no matter what, but it just felt so great to not start with those initial issues.
Mhm.
And then we went out to lunch at a golf course because Devin likes to play golf. And we listened to a voicemail of the doctor saying what the gender was or something. And so birdie is actually a golf term.
Mhm.
I don't play golf, but Devin plays golf. And so he's like, "What would you think if we named her Birdie?" I'm
That's
like,
really cute.
it is really cute. So, so yeah, we did find out the gender. I like to be prepared. I know some people like the surprise, but I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to plan and mentally plan in my head for who we were going to have join our lives.
Now you talked about exercise. What was your diet like during pregnancy?
Diet, I was positive for gestational diabetes.
Mm,
So that really controls your diet
yeah.
big time. I have a whole new respect for people dealing with diabetes. Even being a nurse for 14 years, I never really understood like how hard it is to control those numbers. So I could only eat like 15 grams of carbohydrates at a time. I may have been able to have a little bit more like for breakfast and lunch or something, but was constantly checking my numbers and like measuring out portions. For a treat, I could have a third of a cup of ice cream. I had to measure it with some almond milk, and that was so exciting to me. But
Now,
like,
were you able to control it without medication, just with diet?
thankfully,
Oh,
yes.
good.
Yeah. But it was like a full-time job trying
Yeah.
to figure out what you're going to eat. Have you done the glucose test yet?
Not yet. She says that's like the end of the second trimester.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I thought for sure I would pass it, like I would have no problems because I was exercising all the time and not eating terribly. But no, I failed so bad the first test that they didn't even have me do the second test.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was like no bread, no this. Like even a banana was
Too
over.
much.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy.
So what was a one of your typical meals like?
Cheese. I can't even really remember. I know I would eat a lot of cheese
Hmm.
and probably chicken, and I would have a little banana with almond butter. I ate a lot of almond butter. It's like I could have one graham cracker with almond butter on it. I'm like, well, that makes it easy not to gain a whole bunch of weight because I can't eat anything. You hear all
Yeah.
these people are like, oh, I just ate whatever I wanted and it was great. And I'm like measuring out everything that I ate. So long term or in the long run, it helped, but in the
Hmm.
short term, it is pretty difficult to have to monitor that so closely.
What about products? Was there anything that helped you during pregnancy that you could recommend?
I really didn't use any products. Um,
Okay.
I think I tried to use like a belly stretch cream at
Mm.
one point and then never ended up using it. Just didn't do it, didn't do anything. I didn't have any nausea or vomiting the whole time, so I didn't need to.
Wow.
I know, like it was a really good pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about exercising and hiking because you have some beautiful photos.
Yeah, like I said, it was really easy since I had the last 3 months off of work to just do whatever. So would take a lot of walks around the neighborhood. There's a lot of waterfalls and mountains around here, so we would take some little trips. I had totally forgot all about it until I sent you pictures.
Hmm.
But we went camping when I was 6 or 7 months pregnant in the heat of the sun, and that was really challenging. But the reward was, seeing the beautiful mountains and the sunsets and things
Yeah.
like that.
And how did you prepare for Birdie to come? Like, how did you prepare your home? And also, how did you prepare your body?
Didn't do much to prepare our home. We got a swing put up and a crib built, and that was about the extent. And then preparing for birth, I didn't really do much for that either. I took a prenatal yoga class, but that was pretty much just so that I could be around other pregnant women because I didn't have any friends that were pregnant at the time. And
Hmm.
I could have cared less about the yoga. it was just nice to to go be around some people like me and hear some of their stories. And it was like we started every class with, well, what are you going through this week? And so those first 15 minutes were, it was like what I lived for. It's my only interaction with anyone other than Devin. So that was really great.
Yeah, sharing your experience is so powerful.
Yeah. Just hearing other people are going through what you're going through
Hmm.
is so helpful.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about your pregnancy wise before we get to your birth?
I will say during my pregnancy, well, postpartum, I dealt a lot with intrusive thoughts. In hindsight, I can look back and they started during my pregnancy. And I've had to do my own research on intrusive thoughts because even when I spoke with my doctor, I didn't get a lot of information about what I was dealing with.
Hmm.
But things like standing, I was pregnant and standing at the kitchen sink and like holding a knife and having like a random thought go through my mind of like, I could hurt someone with this knife, or I could stab someone with this knife. And you just kind of like pause and say, what the hell am I thinking? What is going on? Like, this, the thoughts were so scary, but they were so like few and far between during my actual pregnancy that I didn't really give a lot of consideration to that. It wasn't,
Okay.
and we can talk about it more later, but it wasn't until after I had Birdie that those thoughts kind of started to worry me.
Well, about your birth, how did it start? How far along were you?
So I wanted to be induced at 39 weeks because I had done a lot of reading about just increased chances of stillbirth
Hmm.
after 39 years of age, or after 39 weeks.
Hmm.
So we did plan for an induction at 39 weeks. I know that we talked about this before we started, but I do have herpes, and that can be a concern when you're pregnant, just as far as transferring it to your child through the birth canal. So the day that we were scheduled to be induced, I kind of felt like I might be starting to have an outbreak. And so that really concerned me. I wanted to give it another day to see if something really was going on or was not going on. So we actually moved our induction date to the next day. The next day, I still didn't really know if I was starting to have an outbreak or not, but they said, go ahead and come on in and we'll do an inspection and see if we see anything. So we went in and they didn't see any like signs of an outbreak happening, but intuitively, like I still felt like maybe something was going on. You get used to knowing what it feels like when something's about to start. So
Hmm.
I still felt like a little uncomfortable and apprehensive about trying to give birth naturally when I didn't know if there was something happening down below or not. But they went ahead and induced me. We were still like planning for not a C-section, just a regular natural birth. I didn't want to do the epidural if I didn't have to. So they induced me on Monday night, and all day Tuesday, nothing really was moving forward or progressing. And Wednesday morning, still not really anything was happening other than really painful contractions sporadically.
Now,
The
were you
pain,
on Pitocin? Okay.
Pitocin, yeah.
Okay.
And they kept trying to up the Pitocin, but every time they would up the Pitocin, Birdie's heart rate would drop.
Hmm.
And then they'd stop the Pitocin and her heart rate would come back up. We moved to a different room at the hospital, and one that had like a bathtub. So I got in the bathtub to try and ease the pain, but that just did not help at all. The pain just got so bad that I was like, okay, just do an epidural is totally fine. I don't really care that much. So as soon as they did the epidural, it was the best pain relief I've ever had. It was wonderful. But same thing, Birdie's heart rate kept dropping after that. And so a new doctor had just come on and he said, you can keep trying to have this baby naturally. It's totally up to you, but that's not what we're recommending. We recommend that you have a C-section like right now because her heart rate is dropping every time we do the Pitocin. And so I said, can you just give us a few minutes to talk about this? And they're like, sure, no problem. And Devin and I talked it over, and ultimately, you just want a healthy baby. And we're like, yes, just do a C-section. So literally 30 minutes later, we had a baby.
They're so
They I just so fast. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my goodness. It was like, okay, we'll do it. And then they wheel you into a room, slice you open, and here's your baby.
Do you remember any music playing or anything about the OR room?
Not at all. I remember everyone was so friendly, and I really liked the doctor that we had. But other than that, the only other thing that really stands out to me is that once Birdie came out, she like never left our site. She was with us the entire remainder of the hospital stay. And I really appreciated that. She was never like swept off for testing, or she was just with us the whole time. Because I don't
That's
know,
nice.
growing up in the 80s, you hear about all those baby swaps or
Yeah.
so it's nice to know she is my baby.
Yeah, I'm sure your maternal instincts are kicking in too, and you're just like, I want her close too.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was such a relief to not have to try and push her when I didn't know if something was going on as far physically. So like I was really grateful to have a C-section and just not take that risk.
Yeah, definitely. And you were saying that if you do give birth vaginally and if there was an outbreak, then it might blind the child.
Yeah. And gosh, I feel like saying it out loud, I'm like, am I totally off my rocker? But I know that I've read somewhere like that. Yeah. If, the baby comes in contact with the herpes lesion, it can cause blindness.
Wow.
And that's a huge, huge
Yeah.
weight of concern. And
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't want to take that chance, but I also didn't have the nerve to say, I don't like just cut me open and give me a C-section because I don't know if I'm having
Mm-hmm.
an outbreak. It's not something you talk about very often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah. So yeah, birth was relatively smooth. It was a day and a half of extreme pain. And I think it is more painful if you're induced. Not that competing for the worst amount of pain here, but I have
Sure.
heard that it's more painful when you're induced, just because your
Yeah.
body's not doing it naturally.
Mm-hmm. What was
So
the rest of recovery like?
it was good. So Birdie did latch on pretty much immediately for breastfeeding. So
When you were back in the room, I guess?
I think they transferred us to like an intermediate room where they did a couple more tests. And that's where they had her latch on there.
Okay.
They told us I didn't have a lot of milk production at first, and they say that's pretty common when you have a C-section because your body doesn't know that you've had your child yet, so it's not kicking out the milk production. So we did eventually have to supplement a little bit, and they gave us the choice of supplementing with formula or with donated breast milk, which I don't think I had heard anything about. But we chose to do donated breast milk. And we had to like pump it in through a little, and they give you like this tiny little syringe and a long tube that goes into her mouth. So
Mm-hmm.
she latches on so that you want her to think that she's getting your breast milk. So you have her latch on, stick the tube, the tiny little tube in her mouth while she's latched on, and like push the additional
Wow.
milk in there.
I haven't heard of this before.
Oh, really? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. It was quite an ordeal.
And it
Like I said,
worked.
it worked. Yeah.
Wow.
It's it's expensive to get donated breast milk. We found out after the fact, but it was a really great option to have. I don't know what I had against formula at the time because we ended up using formula like 8 months down the road or something, but at the time it seemed like a really great option,
Hmm.
and I'm really glad that we did it. But yeah, it was every feeding was a challenge of like, okay. And it took like two people with Devin like sticking the little tube in her mouth. Uh,
Yeah. So how long was it before your milk came in?
I want to say like a week because I know that we continued to buy donated breast milk the next the week after we left the hospital. And so then it was the milk did finally come in, and I would feed her, and then I would pump after feeding her to try and increase my milk supply to trick my body into thinking we needed more milk than we actually needed. Is very time consuming and challenging when you're like sleep deprived, but
Yeah.
you'll do anything for your baby.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was like, okay, feed the baby, pump, sterilize the equipment, like try and rest for a minute, and then feed the baby.
Do it all over again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Oh, but you're running on adrenaline, and it's just so amazing at first that you don't care at all.
and what was it like bringing her home?
It felt really natural. It was wonderful. She did end up having some jaundice, so we did have to do like a bilirubin light blanket at home for a couple of days. So we'd have to like put these goggles on her eyes and tape it with like, I don't know, some stretchy Coban material and layer on the blanket for as long as we possibly could. And I just remember being so scared that the the goggles were going to fall off her eyes and the light blanket would damage her eyes forever. So I was like just staring at her nonstop, making sure she was okay. But she did fine. After a couple of days, we got to take her off of the light blanket.
Hmm. And how was the rest of your recovery?
It was really good. It's isolating at first because if you have a C-section, they don't want you driving for about 6 weeks. So you're dependent on everybody for everything, and you're at home, or I was at home alone most of the time. Devin had to go back to work. So it was really isolating, but other than that, it was really wonderful just getting to know your child and spending so much time with them, like just having that time that you're not going to get back. Like just that bonding time was so wonderful.
Yeah.
And then like the intrusive thoughts I spoke about earlier, they got pretty bad. And I didn't talk to Devin about it because I was worried about what his reaction might be. I was worried
Sure.
about what anyone's reaction would be if I said, oh, I had thoughts of I could throw our baby down the stairs today. I was so scared that if I told anyone, then someone would take my baby away. So I just dealt with it by myself for a long time. And then it just got to be so bad that I did call my doctor and go in for an appointment. And it really wasn't helpful. They they didn't explain to me what was going on, and I still wasn't being completely honest because I didn't feel like I could. I was just more of saying things like, "Oh, sometimes I have these thoughts of hurting my child." And, "Oh, well, that's normal." And I'm like, "Well, no, it's not normal." They just basically said like maybe postpartum anxiety or like sleep deprivation. And I knew it was more serious than that,
Hmm.
and ended up going home and calling like a baby blues hotline. And it's the best thing I've ever done. I didn't actually talk to anyone, but they like called me. I don't know if I must have talked to someone or texted someone because they did send me a link to a podcast about intrusive thoughts. And that just changed my world completely because it finally gave name to what I was dealing with.
Mhm.
Like, okay, it's intrusive thoughts. Like, the thing that really helped was it said 100% of people with intrusive thoughts do not act on their thoughts. And to me, that was like the biggest
Yeah.
relief in the world because I was like, what if I have like some kind of psychotic break and I do start acting on these thoughts and like nobody's here and I'm home alone with this baby and still just like so worried, like if I tell anyone what I'm really thinking, they're going to take my child away from me. But that podcast just really helped me to understand what I was dealing with and that it was going to be okay. And just, yeah, that I wasn't, more than likely I was not going to act on these thoughts.
Mhm.
But
Do
they're
you
scary.
do you remember the name of it?
No, I always
Oh,
think, oh, if I could go back and find that podcast, because it just happened to be, I got this lady who just happened to like text me back from Baby Blues, and she had like just been to this conference about something, and she's like, here's a link to this podcast. Oh no, I would totally listen to it again and recommend it to everybody, but I have no idea what it was called.
but I mean, what a simple solution to such a big fear of yours.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't until honestly that I reached out to you to do this podcast that I talked to Devin about the thoughts that I was really
Oh,
having.
wow.
Yeah, because I was like, I feel like I really need to share about intrusive thoughts. And this is what I was really thinking, back when Birdie was first born. Like, I'd take a knife and stab the baby or throw the baby down the stairs or walk out into the middle of the road and have a car hit me.
I'm
So
sure there
it,
was relief, right? Telling Devin about it too.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being like, okay, whew, get it off my shoulders. Like, this is what was really going on. And I don't want to hide things, but when you're so scared and you have no idea what's going on, like, you trust no one
Yeah.
because you don't want to lose your baby.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I didn't want Devin to be like, oh, okay, I can't leave you alone with the child now. So
Hmm.
now what are we going to do?
Right. Wow. Do you have plans to have more kids in your 40s?
I hope so. We are trying. I'm
Hmm.
taking all the vitamins that I possibly can to like improve egg quality. I've listened to so many podcasts and watched so many YouTube videos on what you should take if you're trying to get pregnant. So I'm taking every vitamin in the world, just hoping, hoping to get knocked up again.
Now, how old are you just to tell the audience now?
So I'm 47,
Some?
Birdie's 2, and putting words together now in little sentences, and it's the
Oh,
cutest,
so cute.
cutest thing in the whole world.
Now,
Yeah, so we're hoping to have another one. If not, like we have started talking about adoption and different routes that we can take.
hmm now, how long have you been trying?
Let's see, we started trying 4 or 5 or 6 months, I'm not sure,
Okay.
of trying. It's been a little bit, but it's also we're remodeling well, we moved out of Portland and bought this fixer upper. So we're kind of like in a camper part of the time and in a house part of the time. And there's not a lot of privacy from Birdie. So like scheduling time to have sex is like not super fun. So it's been a little challenging trying because it's just like you lose all the, I don't know, all the sexiness or fun when you're like, okay, let's
Yeah.
go a Thursday at noon when Birdie's taking a nap. Let's try. So Our trying has been limited, but we do try and stick it in at least once when I'm ovulating.
Well, that's exciting.
It is. It is. I'm really, really hopeful. And I know you had another guest recently who read or talked about spirit babies.
Mhm.
Did you ever look into that book?
I haven't read it.
It's about communicating with your spirit baby and like calling them into existence or calling them to you or whatever. So I just started reading that. It's pretty fascinating. Just like trying to communicate with them before they're here. I don't
Mhm.
know. I'm trying everything to get a baby to come to us is
Yeah.
essentially
Why not try everything, right?
right. Yeah. And I'm also like just praying like I, I'm I'm okay having a baby. I'm also okay 100% with adopting. So maybe God will just drop a baby in our lap and if it's meant to be, it'll be.
What has been your biggest challenge being pregnant at 44?
I really can't say. For me, there wasn't a challenge since it just happened so I want to say easily, but it didn't happen easily because there was that whole year. We had the two miscarriages. There was that whole year in between miscarrying and having a baby where we did have some unprotected sex, even when I was ovulating, and I was sure, like maybe it'll happen. And I was hiding my desire for having a child since Devin wasn't interested, but it didn't happen for a whole year. I can't say that there was a big challenge other than timing.
Okay,
And
that's
yeah.
okay. Great pregnancies are great pregnancies. Is there anything you recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth?
I hear a lot about just staying active and being as healthy as you possibly can. It makes your pregnancy so much easier. So
Yeah,
literally, I have nothing to compare it to. Like maybe it makes it easier, maybe it doesn't, but it
sure.
helped me.
Yeah. And what advice would you give yourself when you're pregnant if you could go back?
I think just like allowing myself time to rest. I mean, I did rest, but I always felt guilty resting. So just taking the time that you are pregnant and allowing your body all the rest that it needs, all the calm that it needs, just, yeah, doing whatever your body needs at that time and knowing that it's okay.
And we have a lot of listeners who are in their 40s trying to conceive. What advice would you give them?
Just keep trying, keep going for it, just keep following your dreams and don't give up on that desire to have a baby. You can do it.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And where can our listeners find you on social media?
So I'm not on social media very often, but I am on Facebook as Melodie Airs. There's if you're looking for me, I'm wearing a cowboy hat and birdies right next to me.
Will you spell that for us?
So Melodieayres.
Okay.
Feel free to Facebook messenger me. I probably won't respond very quickly, but I will try and respond to you. I'm also on Instagram, but I'm not there super often. But I believe it's Kansas Gal Travels because I'm originally from Kansas. So yeah, those are my two places.
Awesome. Well, Melody, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I love your podcast so much. And I'm so excited for your baby to get
Oh,
here.
thank you.